Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the 5th edition Vampire the Masquerade tabletop role-playing rules by World of Darkness. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. Listeners should know that this podcast is intended for a mature audience and will include strong language and mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and so forth, that may bear resemblance to entities living, dead, or undead is strictly coincidental. My name is Rena Henze, and for tonight's game, I will be your storyteller. Greetings, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Old Ways podcast's Vampire the Masquerade Chronicle, Blood Moon Rising. I am your storyteller Rena, and tonight we are bringing you the first of our character prologues to introduce our coterie to all of you, our wonderful listeners. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to our Patreon backers for selecting this campaign as the third story in the world of the Old Ways, and the cast and I look forward to bringing this custom story to life, or unlife, for all of you. So without further ado, I'd like to briefly turn the spotlight towards the subject of tonight's prelude. So Mike, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you're bringing to this campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Michael Diamond. I am the aforementioned head of the Old Ways, as it were. I am pleased to join the cast of Vampire the Masquerade, Blood Moon Rising, and I will be bringing Marcus Voss of Clan Brujah into the fold. Marcus is a man of the people. He is very much someone who has come up through the struggles of both kindred and kind for the past maybe 90 to 100 years or so, give or take, and has been very much plugged into the pulse of the Longshoremen's Union, a very powerful union in San Francisco that has for many decades struggled against business and capitalism's demands, and Marcus is very much that voice of the people, except now, having left the docks, he now works from, we'll say, a different desk.
Excellent. I can't wait to see what kind of unrest and revolution Marcus brings to our game. But for tonight, let's get to know Marcus a little bit. It is just after sunset in an October San Francisco night. So the sun sets around 6:30 p.m. at this time of year. A little chilly with the wind coming off the bay, but that doesn't bother you all too much. And you are awakening for your evening's activities. Where does Marcus rest? Where does he sleep and hide away from the daylight?
Well, luckily for Marcus, his good-paying union job has afforded him many, we'll say, advantages. One of those advantages is being able to get housing, especially in a place like San Francisco, at least a semi-reasonable rate. And so he has made a haven out of a near-the-water's edge warehouse building, which he purchased many decades ago, and has even outfitted it a little bit with, we'll say, several union members who watch over it as a trusted location, an important key meeting spot for late-night contract disputes, that sort of thing. He uses that as a base of operations. It's not too far from the union offices at the port, so he's close by in case there are any immediate needs, but it probably is where he finally unrolls himself from bed. While the haven is not by any means an extravagant location, Marcus is a man that lives within his means. He's also someone who does not genuflect the idea of being a man of the people and then secret away inside of some sort of pleasure palace because he's a vampire. He very much walks what he talks, and it is a core concept and characteristic of him is to be true to the message that he's trying to deliver. There's no sense in trying to build a revolution if people find you to be, well, all talk.
He's definitely a man of action as well as talk, then.
When necessary, yes.
So you wake up on this cool evening. You keep the temperature down in your haven for when you awake. And I'd like you to make a rouse check. So you're going to roll a d10, and you want to roll a 6 or above to see how your hunger is doing. How well are you controlling your urges to feed tonight?
Is an 8.
All right, so you're still in full control of yourself as you arise into this cool evening. You can hear your friends and your colleagues, the few who you have watching over your haven, moving around outside your room. You hear some low voices and just murmurings of people going about the evening's business. So last night, you received an interesting piece of mail in your P.O. box. Why don't you tell us what that is?
Yeah, I received a note from a lawyer, right? A real piece of work, as we would probably call him on the docks. We might have a couple of other colorful adjectives for a guy like this, but it's pretty clear that he has all of the acumen and all of the reputation of a real snake. And it's clear also that there's going to be some sort of issue. A larger one than there already is. This manufacturer warehouse had docked pay of 50 of its workers this week because they participated in a general strike. A general strike I likely gave the silent nod to have happen. I had recently helped this warehouse unionize, and the company was trying to get away with withholding pay for the hours that the workers were striking. And we're not interested in any kind of BS contract clauses. They're going to pay, because it's about solidarity. And so last night I got this card from Riker Remington Radcliffe IV. It's pretty clear just by the name alone that not only is the stick far up in the ass, but it's also bent sideways. Because you don't put 3 R's in somebody's name and not be a complete cunt. So he's a lawyer. He wants to have a chat around 9 p.m. He's hoping to work something out. And I probably have been stewing about it for a few hours before I went to bed.
Mm-hmm. So R4, as he calls himself sometimes when he's trying to sound like he's cool and edgy, has sent you this note. He didn't put his name on it or anything because he likes to keep it on the down low. But he does want to meet you tonight, and he intimates that this is something you've done before. So he gives you a meeting place where he's met you for similar discussions in the past. What is that meeting place?
So that meeting place is likely a little bit what we'll call an in-between place, right? So he's not the sort of fellow who's willing to come to my territory. He doesn't want to be anywhere near the docks, right? But what he does and is most willing to do is go to a little eatery not too far, terribly far. It's an Italian place. It's called Seven Hills. It's up on Hyde Street. It closes about 9, and the reason why he probably sets the meeting, as he always has before, for 9, is that he knows that, either through a relationship he has with the business owner, we're able to get a quiet table and back and not be disturbed after the restaurant closes.
Excellent. So you know exactly where to go, and you have a couple hours to prepare for this meeting and perhaps boost your energy levels before you go to meet with this cunt of a lawyer. So, what would Marcus do before going into the situation? Are you going to feed? Are you going to wait to satiate your hunger until afterwards, lest you rouse the beast, so to speak? What would Marcus do?
Rousing the beast is always of a concern to Marcus because he knows the Achilles heel, as everyone does of Clan Brujah. They know that when the beast gets roused, it can be very difficult to put back in its cage. And so I think since he woke up reasonably in control, he's probably not looking to feed necessarily.
Okay.
So I think he's probably willing to forego that for the moment. But to get a little energy, I think he'd probably try to get into his normal routine. He'd still want to stop to the union offices before making his way to the meeting. So it might be something as simple as perfunctory, because he is what we would call kind of a second shift lead as far as the union goes. He doesn't actually, the best part for Marcus is he doesn't actually have a real on paper job. He's a figurehead. He's a union contract. So people can contact him if they have an issue. He helps solve those problems in one way or the other, whether it be, dealing with the corporate side or the boss side for the union worker, or if that means getting into somebody's office and getting in their face and having to prove the power of the union, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he'd probably want to keep most of his regular rhythms, because even as much as he's a person that can move and change, he's going to want to know that other things are dealt with and put away before he goes to meet R4, a lawyer who's masquerading as a Star Wars droid or something like that. I have no idea.
And I'm sure you've thrown that in his face a couple of times.
Oh, clearly.
Of course. So you exit your bedroom into the main part of this warehouse area, and your team is moving around, talking to each other. You have some people who are working through paperwork on this case for you. They do all of the reading and the cross-referencing and everything, so that you can go out and do the real active work. So some more like legal assistants who know the terminology and know what to look for.
Oh yeah.
One of them looks up and waves at you, and this is Greg, sitting off in a corner. He's got glasses perched on the edge of his nose, and he's got 4 or 5 screens set up, and he is going through all of these documents and PDFs, and he waves at you, and he says, "Hey, boss, they're just burying us over here. Just, have you seen how much paperwork they've dumped on me for this? Dear God."
Step over. What's the situation, Greg?
Well, you know how we asked for relevant documentation so we can fight them on this, pre-court, so we don't have to necessarily sue them over this?
Right.
They gave us literally every piece of documentation related to the union contracts, related to contracts in general, like things going back 50 years. And I have to sort through every single goddamn piece of documentation so that they don't try and sneak something in on us. But, And he just picks up this large cup of coffee. It's like twice the size of a venti from Starbucks, and he just downs half of it in one gulp, and he sets it down. His hands are shaking a little bit. He says, "I'm going to be up all night, boss."
Listen, I look around. Is there anybody else here that has the legal acumen that Greg does?
You have a look around, and you see Marie is sitting off in the corner. She's not quite as experienced as Greg. Greg is your head of the legal section, but she's pretty well trained. She's been working with you for a few years now, so you could pull her in on this from whatever she's working on.
Yeah. I walk over. I tell Greg, listen, just ease up on the coffee a little bit, okay? Keep it under control.
Okay. And he takes another...
It's super important. What I'm going to
Takes another gulp.
I ease the coffee cup back down real steady. Like I keep my hand on the top of it and kind of lock eyes with Greg and say, "I'm going to get you Marie, and the two of you are going to split the duty, and you're going to get me what I need in the next 3 hours. I don't need everything, Greg. Here's what I need. I need a hole. I need something I can push a truck through. Do you get my meaning?"
Yeah. Holes. Yes. Okay, holes. I'll look for holes. Good at holes. And he starts twitching a little bit as he's obviously trying to pull the coffee back,
Christ.
but he can't because you've got your hand over it, and then he sets it down. And he starts scribbling. He's ambidextrous, so he's writing with both hands, taking notes on where he should look for the next thing, but he's really intensely focused now.
I walk over to Marie and I'll say, Marie, what are you working on?
Marie looks up at you as a tiny, petite woman with short, dark hair and big, dark eyes, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and she's got an iPad in front of her that she's been furiously taking some notes on. Like, I've been doing that background research on the legal firm that they hired in this case, and also on that shark who's trying to dock their pay. Can you believe how much their CEO makes, and he's trying to take away pay from people who make $15 an hour? Oh.
Yeah, I can believe it, Marie. It's been going on for literally thousands of years. More to the point, though, we have an issue, and you are going to be able to help us solve this issue.
Sure, boss. What do you need?
I need you. I tilt my head over to lead her eyes to Greg.
Oh.
Greg has had way too much coffee to concentrate. And so while his legal mind might be very sharp and he may be very experienced, I need you to go calm him the fuck down.
I can swipe out the coffee room coffee with decaf.
We are not losing this fight.
No, we damn well aren't. It's a disgrace.
Listen, I have a meeting I need to be at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
You have my number. I want you to call me before 9 o'clock with some type of leverage point that I can make stick.
Okay.
I don't need to know the entire contract details. I don't need to know every single loophole they're trying to pull. But I need to know one that we have enough legal standing on. I want to know the one they don't want us to know.
Okay, you want the whole. Yeah, you want the whole. Okay. She kind of tilts her head slightly to look at Greg. Goes, well, I'll get on it. I'll help him out with that. Decaf. She's sort of shaking her head and rubbing her temples a little bit as she cautiously makes her way over to Greg's desk. He has a little sign on the side of his desk that says approach with caution.
I bet. I probably should get one of those for the bedroom. So, with those two forces now hopefully working together, she way more stable than he. Yeah, I suppose that I would probably get on the phone too, and while it would be maybe a little irregular, I am going to, unless I would know not to, I'm going to reach out to David Surrey. I'm going to reach out to my sire and see if there are any perhaps pearls of wisdom he may or may not be able to share with me about contract negotiations. Not that I haven't done a bunch, but clearly this is a pretty important case for us, especially with all of the push now from everything going on in shipping right now, it being tight and us having to deal with a bunch of delays. It's only pressing down on workers and probably only propelling more companies to try to hire scab workers to cut union rights and violate contracts.
Right, you had to pull David in actually on unionizing this particular group because the warehouse was in fact hiring a bunch of workers who they could pay under the table, specifically undocumented workers and a few other people. So they've been hiring mostly people like undocumented workers and people who are so desperate for the funding that they were scared to unionize. And so you had to pull in David to help you out on this particular case. So he's already fairly familiar with it. So you give him a call. It rings for a few minutes. You have to call again. You're not sure if he was awake yet or not before he finally answers. Hello? What? Speak up. Oh, Marcus. What?
Sire, I say in a very firm tone. I am going to be meeting with a lawyer connected to the company we're working on the dispute with tonight. And I have my people here working on the contract portion of it. But my concern is that they're going to try to pull something here last minute to continue using these non-union workers or continue to attempt to refuse to pay the workers because they were working during a strike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, read about it. Papers. They got R4 on it. That twat.
Yeah, they have their Star Wars droid working their angle.
Talks like a robot too. Hate that guy. Let me see. I talked to Alex and I got some information for you on that. 1 second. You hear this loud sort of crashing noise. It sounds like he tripped over a table or something. Like, fuck. In the background, and then you hear the rustling of papers. R4 Riker, whatever the fuck his name is. So I did a little bit of digging after we got the union together. This group, R4 had a mistress who disappeared last month, very suspiciously.
Really?
You know, I've got that Giovanni kid, Alex, it's feeding me some stuff. just so I can keep abreast of what's going on. And yeah, it was really, really suspicious stuff. She was there, and then she was gone. Supposedly went to visit her mother.
I've heard that story before.
Yeah. Been looking out for possibilities of where he might have dumped a body, but he has a way of making problems disappear. And it sounds like she was going to go to his wife.
I see.
Mm-hmm. So, I know it's nothing legal you can use, but... And he's paused as he ruffles through some more papers. I don't think he's the sort of person who would take kindly to the idea of someone informing his wife. What do you think? Might give you some leverage if we can't find anything legal to stand on.
I tend to agree. Do you have a name on her?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a Nina Velashnikov or something. Something Slavic. I'll text it to you. I can't pronounce these stupid Slavic names. Why can't they have something normal?
I shake my head. I don't say anything.
Well, let me know how you get on with it. I hope it helps. But it seems like a real nasty piece of work, that one.
Yeah. That said, though, maybe before the meeting with Riker, I'll make a quick stop and see Nina.
You should. Well, go out and get them. Smash the capitalists. And you hear a loud crash as his actual phone, because he has a landline, slams down into the receiver.
I flinch. Okay, so I'm going to wait for his message, and then I'm going to do some really quick searching to try to get a location on Nina, because I have a fun idea now.
Okay.
Potentially fun.
A text message comes through after about 5 minutes. He has a cell phone, but it's like one of those old Nokia flip phones that you have to hit each key 3 or 4 times to get the right letter.
T9 texting.
Because he refuses to upgrade to your capitalist technological bullshit. So it's just how they control the people, through technology.
He's not wrong.
Yes. So, but he does text you, get a Nina Velashnikov coming up, so you can research there.
Yeah, I really just want to hit all of the major social stops at this point, not just via the internet, right? So clearly the first place I'm going to go, if she's his age or roughly therein, she's probably got a Facebook profile, because obviously nobody uses yellow pages or white pages anymore. Although it wouldn't be completely out of character if Marcus found himself somewhere looking, like back at his house, like looking for a phone book, just because it's the way his brain would still think, just to see if there was anything else. And if I'll see if I can get a ID on where she might be.
So I'd like you to give me a roll for this.
Okay.
You're going to give me investigation plus intelligence. So you're going to roll 4 d10s, and is a normal basic level of difficulty because it's the internet and you're very good at this. So let me know how many passes you get.
Okay, so target number is what, 7 or higher?
6 or higher.
6 or higher. 6 or higher. I have 3.
Okay, so that's a very good success there. You're able to find some things fairly quickly. Nina appears to be a former model, it looks like. She's, very tall and leggy, tends to wear very short dresses, has long blonde hair and big blue eyes, very sharp, angular Slavic features. She's got this very doe-eyed way of looking at the camera that plays off a combination of kind of innocence and sexiness that many people would find appealing. And seems she aged out of modeling a little bit, never quite made it to supermodel status, but you find her Instagram with a ton of pretending not to be posed, but very definitely posed photos of her on a yacht, in a jacuzzi, whale watching, at a party, all sorts of pictures. It seems she got out and about quite a bit, and you do find her Facebook profile. It is public because she is a public figure, or likes to consider herself one, and you see a lot of mentions of a mystery man. Calls him my gentleman.
Oh my. Your gentleman. Well, okay. So I'm going to try to get an idea based off of her Instagram and based off of her Facebook, likely because Facebook people tend to post there, at least depending on their age bracket, tend to post more personal things to their Facebook than their Instagram, depending upon how old she is. I'm going to try to get an idea based off of the location of her posts about where she might frequent.
She does do location tagging in her Instagram posts and also on Facebook. She wants people to know where she is so she can be seen.
Sure.
And you see that she frequented a winery. There's a little restaurant, Italian restaurant attached to it, close to Chinatown, just a little bit up from Chinatown. And she talks about going for walks in Chinatown afterwards with her gentleman. So he treats me to wine and to fine pastas. And then we go and we have the fortune cookies in Chinatown, and it is just so romantic. You can almost hear her voice as you read these posts.
My. I'm going to try very hard not to typecast her. It's not necessarily her. I mean, if she, do I feel like she's a transplant? Do I feel like that's the situation? Like she came from Eastern Europe and America is her second home?
That's what it sounds like based on her grammar and her syntax.
Yeah. I try not to judge people by the way that they talk, because everybody communicates a little bit differently. But that said, yeah, I'm gonna go check out the restaurant. At least I'll get in the car and drive over there. I'll let my people know to keep working, and I'll be in touch.
Greg is chugging down another large coffee, but you see Marie just give you a slight wink as you walk off. They keep working on their various screens and tablets.
Oh, bye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he'll be passed out soon. That come down off that much caffeine is going to be pretty vicious for Greg.
He'll have quite the caffeine headache in the morning.
Indeed. So yeah, we'll check out the restaurant in the local area, and I'll keep an eye on her Facebook or her Instagram as I go to see if there are any other updates.
So, as you're driving down, traffic is kind of bad, and especially if you get stuck in one of the hilly areas. But you're used to it after so many years living in San Francisco, so it's not too difficult for you. You have a lot of time to think what you're going to say to R4 in your meeting with him very shortly. What kind of music does Marcus listen to, or does he listen to any music in the car?
No, he probably does listen to music. He has a fairly wide range. I think that his musical tastes probably start around like the 50s and 60s at this point, 1950s, 1960s, if only because a lot of the stuff that he probably listened to when he was eventually turned has probably just aged out to the point where it's not appealing as much anymore. Maybe some of the old jazz numbers and stuff like that might be interesting, but that's not the feel that he's probably looking for tonight. So he's probably cycled the clock way forward and is probably listening to it could be the Doom soundtrack, just because he's trying to get amped up and get excited about what's going to happen. Or it could be something like Alice in Chains.
A really interesting mix of music playing there.
Yeah.
But you keep an eye on Nina's social media profiles, and nothing comes up. And
okay.
As you're thinking through all of this, you get stuck at a red light with that really good roll you had earlier. You make a connection that she hasn't posted on her Facebook or her Instagram for 2 weeks.
So maybe she is gone. Okay. Well, either way, I'll probably check the restaurant out just because I want to put eyes on the place and see if she's visually there. Maybe she's not posting. I don't have access to her phone, so obviously I can't do anything technical in that regard or get it to somebody who could. I would be perfectly fine with going in there and showing the maitre d' or even the hostess, whomever they might be, depending on the fanciness of the restaurant, her picture and say, "Hey, have you seen this person?"
All right, so you finally make it to the restaurant. The parking lot is really full. It's one of those trendy little winery with a restaurant, and probably takes a few weeks to get a reservation.
Right.
But since you're not planning to eat there, it doesn't bother you all that much. But it does take you a few minutes to find a place to park. But it's designed to look like, a cozy little Italian place, like maybe off in the foothills of Italy somewhere.
Oh, okay, sure.
And it's got vines all over the outside. It's very artfully decorated. It's called Giuseppe's.
Teacup dinner plates are $85 a piece. And yeah.
Yes, that kind of place, exactly.
I already hate this place.
Yes, it is definitely very artistic, but also very pretentious, especially for someone like Marcus. Yeah. So you can walk in. There's no people sitting around waiting for a table. It's not that kind of joint. You show up when you have your reservation and you get seated immediately. Right. But it is... On the inside, it's a lot fancier than the outside. White tablecloths, really fancy chandeliers on the one side, the dining side, and then you have this really cozy-looking winery on the other side, the wine bar. The two sides don't quite work together, but people seem to be enjoying it. There is a very tall person in a tuxedo standing behind a podium, flipping through a book, probably an appointment book. This is the kind of place that still uses books, not computers, and making some notes, and they do not look up as you approach. What is Marcus wearing into this fancy restaurant?
Oh, yeah. So he probably is not wearing anything at all fancy. He is likely dressed in... No, he's not a slob by any means. He knows that even though... the clan might get put down a little bit for having anything close to normal style points, at least acceptable by culture. That's really not what he's into anyway. He is a kindred of kind of a specific theme, I think. And so he probably wears black shirt. He probably wears either a black button-up, like collared shirt, not buttoned up all the way, because he has to sometimes look semi-presentable. He probably has a leather jacket over that. Not a biker jacket by any means, but like a leather jacket over that. And yeah, probably something like a flat black pants. Not dress slacks by any means, not khakis, but something he could potentially get dirty in if he had to.
So definitely doesn't suit the vibe of this place.
No way.
So the maitre d' does not look up as you approach. You just sort of stand there for a couple minutes before they realize you're not going anywhere, and they finally look up at you.
There's no fucking way Marcus stands there for a couple of minutes.
All right, a few seconds. It's all right. So
just saying, that's not his style.
You walk up to the maitre d', who does not look up as you approach. What does Marcus do?
Is there a jar of or a container of Italian after dinner mints?
Yes, of course.
I stick my whole fucking hand in there. And then I put like the handful I have like in my pocket and take one out and then slowly peel the wrapper off of it.
The maitre d' finally looks up as you do this, and you can see the widening of their eyes as they just sort of look down their nose at you. It's like, can I help you?
You got any more mints?
Don't you think you've taken quite enough?
I know they're pretty tasty. Listen, fuckstick, I need you to look at this. I take out the phone and I open up Nina's picture. Have you seen this woman? It's really important.
He just looks at you past the picture on the phone. I'm afraid we don't serve people here without a reservation. You may wish to try coming back. We are quite full at the moment.
I look around at the table. I wouldn't eat this food. What is this, frozen spaghetti?
You hear the sharp intake of horrified breath. We make our pasta fresh every morning from scratch. How dare you?
Is that what you tell these people? You can get that at $8 at the store down the street. Guaranteed. I'd look at one of the customers.
The customer is a young man, very nervous-looking young man sitting with another young man about the same age at the table. It looks like he's got a small ring-sized box hidden under his plate. Just looks at you, wide-eyed, a little shocked.
I wink at him and mouth the words, congratulations.
He just shakes his head and, thank you?
I turn back to the maitre d'. No.
But the maitre d', just shaking almost with rage a little bit, is just like, you must leave the premises immediately. You do not have a reservation.
I'm not eating. I don't need a reservation. Calm down and act like a human being for a second. There's a girl. She's been missing for 2 weeks. It's really important that you pay attention. She used to come here all the time. So, since it doesn't cost me a thing, I'm going to get the maitre d's attention for absolute certainty with awe.
Ooh, right, so the maitre d' is shaking a little bit and flushing slightly red and looking around, but they can't help but look at you and be drawn to you, and they're just making eye contact, and their eyes glance down at the phone and then look back at you, and you definitely have their attention. So I would like you to make a persuasion and charisma roll. So that's going to be 4d10.
Yep.
And it's going to be a moderate difficulty here because you did just insult this person.
I have 2 successes, a 7 and an 8.
Okay. It's enough. It's enough in this case. They look begrudgingly down at the phone, and it takes a second, but you see them tilt their head, and this little questioning sort of crease around the eyes. Yes, Miss Velashnikov, yes, they flipped through their book. She was supposed to be here yesterday, and her usual 7 p.m. Didn't show up. It's never happened before. Missing, you say?
I'm very concerned about her. Is there anybody in the area that might know where she is?
She used to come in with a gentleman.
Does the guy fucking air quote me?
The maitre d' doesn't physically do air quotes, but you can hear the air quotes around the word gentleman.
I smile. So, I know I've dealt with R4 before, right?
Yes, you have.
So I give it a brief description of him.
Yes, the very fancy suits and no socks with his shoes. Looked very disapproving. Yes, that sounds like him. I don't know his name, but he did come in with her several times.
All right, thank you. Listen, I appreciate your time, and thanks for the mints. I turn around.
You hear a and just sort of a rifling of papers as the maitre d' tries not to look flustered as they flip through their book and try to look busy. And then in the background you hear a yes from the couple at the table, and cheering from several people around them.
I put one of those Italian mints in my mouth just to get the taste for a second before likely getting back to the car and spitting it out.
Definitely. So you get back to your car. It's getting close to your time to meet up with R4.
That's where we're going.
All right, so you're heading to the eatery.
I am, but I want to stop, just make one very brief stop, and I want to stop and get gas. I don't need any gas for my car, but I'm going to stop and get gas.
All right. I like where this is going. So you stop, and I assume you keep a gas can in the back of your car for such purposes.
Oh, yeah. It's probably several.
So you're easily able to pick those up. There's enough power outages that happen and have happened over the summer that people are used to customers coming in, getting gas for their generators. So no one looks at you twice as you fill up a couple cans of gas at the local station before you drive off.
Excellent. And then I head to the meeting.
Okay, so you go to the meeting. As you pull into the parking lot, which is pretty empty except for a couple vehicles that probably belong to staff, and then R4's very, very ostentatious Humvee, which is an absolutely ridiculous vehicle to drive in San Francisco, but R4 has driven a new one every year for the 5 or 6 years you've known him.
Sure.
It's very ostentatiously parked in front, and you get a ping message on your phone from Marie.
Okay, what's it?
It says, Greg passed out, did find this clause, and she types in this section from a legal document that essentially says that the only reasons to dock someone's pay in this particular warehouse, this is from several years ago, is based on reports of misbehavior from the foreman or repeated complaint lodged with HR. And she says, this was buried really deep in one of their HR documents from 6 years ago. It was never revised, and it was one of the clauses they put in after they had some issues with maternity leave and docking people's pay 6 years ago. She leaves that for you and says, anything else? Smiley, smiley.
No, Marie, I type back. Thank you. I then ask, do you like Italian food?
Oh, yeah, I love Italian food.
Okay. Sit tight.
Sweet, with 3 exclamation points, and then your phone goes silent.
I put the phone on silent. I get kind of adjusted a little bit. And then, so this Humvee that sits outside the restaurant, how publicly viewed is it?
You see it when you pull into the parking lot, but there's trees and bushes and several public art installations around this area, so you can't really see it from the street. If you pull in, you see it, but otherwise you wouldn't notice it was there. It's one of the reasons he chooses this eatery.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Well, I'll go inside and have my meeting.
All right. You walk into this eatery. It's much more your style than the wine bar and Italian eatery you were at before. It's got plain, simple, family-style tables in most of it, a few smaller tables in back corners for people who wish to be alone, and checkered tablecloths folded up neatly since they're at closing hours. It smells like freshly baked bread in here, as they're probably baking for the next day already. And low lighting, fairly dim. It's quiet, and they have some low jazz music playing quietly in the background as you walk in. The wait staff appear to have left, except for one person who appears to be taking dishes into the kitchen in the back. And again, there's probably someone baking bread back there and getting ready for the next day. But off in a corner, leaning his chair back, like tipping it back so that his head is almost against the wall, you see the long and lanky form of Riker Remington Radcliffe IV, also known as R4 in his own mind. He is very tall and thin. He wears a very well-tailored suit in a very garish green with a skinny tie. He's wearing black loafers with no socks, and he's got the kind of scruffy hair that he thinks makes him look like he just rolled out of bed. You can tell that he's put a ton of gel and probably an hour of work into making it look like that. And he's got a very flashy Rolex that he's ostentatiously checking as you walk in. And he looks up as you come in. He goes, "Marcus, my old friend, punctual as ever."
I probably stifle slightly my disgust. Not all the way, but I look at him and say, skinny ties are like an 80s thing. Did you not get the memo?
He laughs a bit uneasily, but he says, "Oh, they're back in. The 80s are all the 2020s again now, haven't you heard?" And he adjusts his tie and looks pleased with himself.
No. I really didn't have a chance to hear because I've been too busy trying to figure out why you are trying to get a bunch of good union workers from getting paid properly.
Marcus, he shakes his head. Talking business before you even sat down. He nods his head towards the chair across from him, pours a very middle-range bottle of wine out, red wine. Wine?
Oh, I just had some, actually. I'm all right, thank you.
I think you're a bit more of a stick in the mud than you like to let on, Marcus. You never seem to drink. Always suspiciously drunk before we meet. That's very suspicious. And he chuckles a little bit.
Maybe I just know the right parties.
He looks puzzled, like he's not quite sure if you insulted him or not.
That's okay. So you said you'd like to work this out.
Oh, I'm sure we can come to some kind of arrangement. I mean, there's no reason we have to go to court over this, is there?
Let me ask you something.
Yes.
Do you like getting paid less than you're worth? I bet that doesn't happen to you, does it?
Of course not. I know what I'm worth. He chuckles again.
Right. Of course you do. You spent a long time, right? At least a lot of investment, a lot of hours figuring out what you wanted to do and purposing all that time into creating a kind of gesture in a large sweeping motion, whatever it is you have. You spent time into that, just like these people had spent time working. They deserve to get paid correctly. And they have the backing of the union. And I know you know what that means. And though the entire reason the strike was called, the entire reason, is because if we're not willing to stand up for one worker being abused, let alone 50, then what does solidarity even mean?
Well, Marcus, I understand what you're coming from, and really it's quite noble, all the work you do and everything. You're quite good at all the speeches and all of it. You really should have been a lawyer. You would have been wonderful at giving a speech in court. I could see your opening monologue now. But, really, my hands are tied here, old man. I mean, they weren't working during hours they were supposed to be working. I don't get paid for hours where I don't do my work when I'm supposed to be working. I
don't believe that for a second. You're a lawyer. You bill by the hour.
Of course I do.
Whether you're drinking a martini or whether you're filling out paperwork.
Oh, but when I'm drinking martinis, I'm doing it with clients and doing work for them. So it's all work in the end, you see.
Sure.
But standing outside with picket signs and chanting and all that sort of thing is not the work that these people were contracted for. So I'm sorry, but there's really nothing I can do there. I mean, you shouldn't get paid for work you don't do.
Do you have the copies then? You have all the copies then of the official human resources complaints against them, right?
The what?
You've clearly got that. You'd have to have that. You'd have to have that and all the write-ups the foremans would have had to do for belligerent activity at the job site, yes? You'd have all that documented because you would know that if you didn't have that and you try to come to us without paying the union workers as you're supposed to, you can't find them in violation of a previous contract agreement without having all that in place. See, here's the problem. The only reason you want to talk, the only reason, is because you know that you're up the creek on this one. And you're going to, before you leave tonight, you're going to beg me not to take you to court.
He just sort of tilts his chair back forward so that he's sitting normally, and he leans forward on his elbow, and he cups his chin in one hand. I don't know what you think you've got, old man, but you've got a lot of nerve talking to me that way. I could crush you. You know that, right? I could crush you and that entire union, air quotes, that you work for. We've got the power, Marcus. All your little agitating and your little strikes, you don't really do anything. You make yourself feel better, but we know who's really got the power here, don't we? Now, why don't you be a good boy and just let this one go and go back to your little labor office and go off to some other little warehouse and set up your cute little unions and tell people you're doing good things for them and make them feel better about the work that they're doing. And try not to disrupt the status quo. It never goes well for people like you.
Really? Rena, do I know whether or not Riker is human or not?
I'd say you've worked with him so much at this point that you're fairly certain he is. You've seen pictures of him out in the daytime, so he's definitely not a vampire. But you don't know if he works for any vampires or anything like that. But he himself appears to be human.
You know, we have a saying, and that is, you really only test the Union's strength once. And if that's what you're willing to do, I think you're going to find we're more than up to the challenge.
Really? I think what you're going to find is that people want to get paid and feed their children and keep their jobs more than anything else. You come in with all your talks of making a ripple, of causing a wave, of disrupting things, but people want security, Marcus, and that's what we give them. And if they don't have that anymore, if they have the prospect of not having it anymore, they'll leave you behind.
The tactics never change. The tactics never, ever change, right? The solidarity is based on a principle that you don't understand. And that is, we're willing to put ourselves at risk to protect other people. And I don't think you understand what that means. I think what your people are concerned with is the fact that if the union doesn't work, they don't make any money. And what we're concerned with is making sure that the worker who works gets paid what they're supposed to.
There's always another chain of workers lining up outside the door, waiting. There's a supply shortage, Marcus. There's so many people desperate for work. I could tell the boss to fire everyone in that warehouse for cause, and we could find cause, and you know it. And we'd be able to fill it up again the next day. We'll always find people who want to work. And that's your problem.
Maybe. But it's not an unsolvable one. I tell you what. How about I pick up my phone and I put, we'll say 500 trade unionist strikers on your doorstep. Why don't we put you on the front page of the San Francisco Chronicle? And then, when we turn the heat up real hot, we'll make sure that the papers ask where Nina is. Because she hasn't been seen in a few weeks, has she?
He actually turns pale. You can just sort of see all the color leaching out of his face. What do you mean?
Oh, you didn't like that.
She went to visit her mother. That's all.
Oh, of course she did. I'm sure she did. I'm sure she went to visit her mother. I'm sure that the San Francisco Chronicle or many of the other papers around here have more than enough people. They could inquire about where her mother is, and they can give her a call. Or maybe I'll call for her. I lean forward on the table. Probably enough to put fingerprints into the table. Because I imagine Marcus is getting fairly agitated at this point.
Yeah, if he's getting agitated, I'd like you to give me a willpower roll.
Sure.
And because of your bane, you're going to subtract 1 from that.
Mm-hmm. Such is life.
Such is life. Or unlife in your case.
That's actually a fantastic roll. That's 4 successes.
So you hold it together despite every instinct in you wanting to rip the tongue out of this smug motherfucker's face. But you can see his fingers digging into his palms as he just rests his hands on the edge of the table, and he says, "I'm sure there's no need for such hostilities, old man. Or such nasty rumors. We can work something out, I'm sure."
You're right. You can pay 50 workers the right amount that they're missing. You can make them whole. And just so we're clear, you can find a new struggle. Because, as I said, you're going to beg me to settle.
Well, yes, I will speak to the company and I'll send you our offer in the morning.
I get up, I reach over the table, and I grab him by the suit, and I'm going to walk him out the kitchen door directly.
He struggles a little bit, like trying to pull away, but your grip is far too tight, and he is not a very strong man. I go, "What are you doing, you moron? Let go of me!"
I get to his Hummer with him, and I will put him up against it. I said, beg. Now I'm going to attempt to be very scary.
All right.
To prove a point.
So I want you to give me intimidation. and add your manipulation to that. So that's going to be 4 for you. And because he's already frightened of you, it'll be a basic success.
Okay. Oh, thank goodness. So that's 1.
Okay. Well, 1 is what you needed because he was already frightened and because of your tactics in maneuvering him outside. He looks at you and his hands start shaking and you can feel beneath the suit, you can feel his heart rate accelerating, and it's intoxicating to you, the fear that you've installed in this man.
Yeah.
Don't. He finally manages to sputter out.
I open up his car door, and I know that the truck is probably locked, but I'm going to open it anyway.
He looks at you wide-eyed.
Get in.
He stumbles backwards, like shaking, and I'm going to ask you to make another willpower roll here because of that heartbeat and that fear and that rising dominance in there.
Sure. Down a die, I assume.
Yes, of course, because of your bane.
Okay. I have 2 10s so far. So 2 10s. I don't know if 10s reroll or not in V5.
In this case, it just means everything works the way you want them to. Yes, because you didn't get 3 D10 or 3 10s. All right, so he is petrified. And with the 2 criticals, you can hear his heartbeat ringing in your ears, like thump 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 thump. Even as he pulls away from you, you can't feel it in your hands, but you can still hear it, and you can smell the fear and the stench of the sweat seeping through his expensive shirt as he stumbles backward and into the car, and it's intoxicating. It's even better than the finest vintage of alcohol you ever drank when you were still human. It fills you with power and with rage. Says, yes. Whatever you want, old man. Yes, of course. And he pulls himself into the car.
I'm gonna put my, just because I like living dangerously, I'm going to put my hand, especially my thumb, on his carotid artery because I want to feel the pulse going through his body. It's not enough for me to simply smell the fear. Like, as an alley cat predator, like, this is the best part for me. And I don't even know necessarily that I want to feed off of him, but I want that raw animal emotion, and I want to be able to feel what my ears are hearing.
So you reach out and you grab his throat and you put your fingers on that artery, and you can feel how fast his heart is racing. You can feel the sweat beneath your fingers, and you can lean in and you can see just how dilated his pupils are. He's looking up at you and his whole body is shaking. He's like, "What the fuck are you, man?"
And I say, "Beg me."
Just don't. I'm sorry. And all the pretense of that ridiculous accent that he puts on, his posh tones or his attempt at posh, it all just sort of drops away. He's like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Don't, please don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me.
You're going to settle?
Settle? Yes. Well, anything. Anything.
Good. I lift my hand just for the moment, but I'm going to leave it probably near for 2 or 3 of my heartbeats, in air quotes. And then I'll just kind of pull back.
And you can smell the stench of urine as a wet patch spreads across the front of his trousers, and he's almost crawling backwards on his hands, trying to pull away from you over to the driver's seat as quickly as he possibly can, but he's shaking so badly it takes him a couple minutes to pull himself entirely inside the vehicle. Well, what the fuck, man? What the fuck?
I'm gonna shut his passenger door that I originally had opened, but before I do so, I will say, "Have a nice night." And I'm gonna give him a somewhat not kindred smile, but a very toothy smile as I do so.
Jesus fucking Christ. And the door slams shut, and within a couple minutes, you hear that ridiculous engine revving up, and he is tearing out of the parking lot. He almost runs over the curb in his haste to get out.
I go back to the restaurant. I poke my head in the kitchen door. Out of my wallet springs a few $100 to the chef or to the head cook, whomever it might be. And I ask them for a tray of whatever leftovers they might have because I have some good union workers who need some food.
They look very surprised for a moment till they realize it's you because they've seen you come in a couple times before. Sure thing, Mr. Voss. Right away, we got some caprese. We got some pizza. We got. You want everything?
Whatever you've got.
Okay. So they put together some various pastas, takeaway containers. There's a couple pizzas and some antipasti, and there's even a few cups of tiramisu, a few other things. They package them all up and hand them to you.
Wonderful. I thank them each in kind and head back to my car.
As you get to your car, I would like you to roll awareness.
Okay. So, awareness, just flat awareness, or
just flat awareness.
Okay. If standard difficulty is 6, it's 2.
Okay. You got 2 successes?
Yep.
All right. So you put your hand on the door, or you reach to put your hand on the door, and you realize someone's in your car, in the passenger seat.
Okay. I set the Italian food on the top of the car, and I open my driver's side door.
A small man, very fox-like features, small beady eyes, and very sharp cheekbones, and very fiery red hair, turns his head to look at you. And you recognize this man. He's one of your own kind, different clan, but this is Luther Garibaldi. This is the sheriff, the prince's right-hand man.
Sure.
And Luther is sitting in your car, and he's looking at you. And he smiles this sort of predatory smile. Luther is a gangrel, one of the city gangrels. He's been around for the last 30, 40 years. And he just does this slow, almost sarcastic clap.
Well handled there, Marcus. Oh, gonna have to clean up that mess, though.
I look back.
Well, not now. Not now. But he's gonna need some taking care of, I think, after this little whatever it is you have going on with him.
We're just making sure that we're protecting the rights of our union laborers. You understand that, Sheriff?
He smiles again, that sort of predatory smile. And do you get in the car? Do you lean in closer? Or are you just keeping a distance from him?
I mean, I think any vampire, especially Brujah clan members, probably have a healthy respect of the sheriff. So I'm probably going to stay right where I am.
He turns slightly to look at you and he goes,
Got a message for you, Marcus. Clan's out.
What do you mean?
I mean they're going. Gone. I'm staying right here. I got my job to do.
As he's turned to look at you under the street light, you can see he's got dark, what look like almost shadows under his eyes. And he looks a little tired. Not quite as sharp as he normally does. He's like,
I know you got some of them working down at the Union. Got a couple of them hanging down at the docks sometimes, but you won't be seeing them anymore. They're going. They're just out.
Why? Why are gangrels leaving? I'm genuinely concerned.
He takes a deep breath. He pulls out a cigarette and he looks at it forlornly. He usually keeps a packet with him. He shakes his head and puts the cigarette back in the packet and slides it back into his coat.
They say something's coming. Don't know what, but the clan got real spooked. Some of the country ones came in, had a little chat with some of the leadership. There was a fight. Don't worry, I sorted it out. But something definitely spooked them and they're going. Told me to come with them, but I got my job to do. You understand?
Yeah, of course. You have to keep order. Especially with all of the rabble. I smile.
You see his fangs glisten.
I don't like it, Marcus. I'm only here telling you this because I'm doing you a favor. I know you got some friends in the clan. They didn't want to go without telling you, but whatever spooked them bad. A few of them already started leaving before. They talked to some Malkavian who gave them prophecies, doom and gloom, all that. I didn't think much of it, but whatever they're hearing made all of them just up and leave. They're gone.
Great. What does the prince have to say about it?
Well, that's the real question now, isn't it? They keep their own counsel, but we're looking into it, let's say. You'll be seeing me around, doing my own work.
I have no doubt.
Catch you later.
And Luther steps out of the passenger seat of your car. It's a fedora on his head. He's always affected a fedora the entire time you've known him. And he shoves his hands in his pockets.
Bye-bye.
And that is where we will end tonight's session. Thank you, Mike, for joining us tonight, and thank you to our listeners. I hope you've enjoyed our introduction to Marcus Voss of Clan Brujah. Please join us next week for our next prologue, and in the meantime, have a good night. It's not safe out there in the dark.